meeting. All right, I'll do that again.
Thank you, sorry about that.
That's fine. Conservation Land Bank meeting, January 17th, 2025 at 8:35, and I'll call the meeting to order. And hi, Amanda. We will start out with a public comment period. I see one member of the public on screen. Ross, good morning. Don't know that Ross is tuned in.
Hi, good morning.
Any comments from the public? Good morning.
Just thought it time to come to a meeting.
Good. Welcome, Ross. We appreciate your participation on Turtleback and everything.
No.
Anything else to say?
No, I'm just curious.
Okay, great. Welcome. So I don't see any further members of the public.
Well, you've got two, but it doesn't look like we're speaking up.
Well,
Judy.
Jacob is from Public Works.
Oh, Judy is here. Yes.
Happy to
Okay.
be here
Hi, Judy.
and enjoying the new trail adjacent to Lindy Park on Salmon Island.
Great.
That's about it for me.
Okay. Always good to see you. Any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll continue with our partner update, Vicki Edwards from the Preservation Trust. Good morning, Vicki.
Good morning. Thanks so much. My name is Vicki Edwards. I'm the Conservation Director of the San Juan Preservation Trust. I have a couple of partner organization updates for you all, some exciting ones. Although we do have the North Shore Preserve that is open now, there's still a lot of behind the scenes work that's going on finalizing the conservation easement between the Preservation Trust and the San Juan County Conservation Land Bank. And so John Kane has that final draft for his review. And hello, John, we're hoping to get that by the end of the week here. And thank you for your work with Alice Jones, our outside legal counsel on that. And then once we have that, we will submit it to RCO, the Recreation and Conservation Office, for their review and hopefully approval and moving that forward. It's going to be really important for us and time sensitive that we are able to complete this project in March. And so I know process-wise, there's a lot that goes on regarding that internally with San Juan County and being able to not only finalize the easement, of course, but also getting this in front of the county council. And so if we're able to do that in February sometime, it really would set us up for success in finalizing the conservation easement in March. And so just want folks to kind of pin that, if you could please. As you all know, from an administrative standpoint, we are managing the Salmon Recovery Funding Board and Puget Sound Acquisition and Restoration Fund grant to be able to finalize this project with you all. That includes submitting invoices and costs that the land bank has accrued in some of its stewardship efforts up to this point. That includes signage. We had received bills from the land bank and had submitted those at the end of last year. And we have submitted those to RCO for us to be reimbursed. And that's just another aspect of our partnership that folks may not be aware of, is that our administrative side of things, we cover that, those costs to be able to do that as part of our partnership and work through that together to be able to utilize these public dollars. So important to be able to move this forward to finalize that grant, which also would help cover, you all will receive additional funds in March. And so will the trust from that grant in being able to help cover our line of credit that we took out a few years ago of $1.5 million to help cover the acquisition of the project. And that was a prepayment for the conservation easement. So lots going on there, really complex project, excited to get this to the finish line And just really thanks for everyone for helping us move that forward in a timely manner so that we're able to all complete that in March sometime. And then also wanted to share with you all on another topic. Tomorrow is the annual swan count in San Juan County. The San Juan Preservation Trust, our wildlife biologist, Kathleen Foley Lewis, has been working with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife for more than 20 years on this annual survey of trumpeter and tundra swans across San Juan County. And we organize volunteers that'll be out from 8 to 11 tomorrow morning, counting as many birds as possible. And many of those counts will occur on the San Juan County Conservation Land Bank preserves, including Zylstra, Beaverton Marsh, and others, probably Richardson Marsh as well. And so we will have some Instagram posts after the fact, but just want to share with you all, if you see people out with binoculars, counting birds, that's all part of the annual swan count. And then lastly, wanted to share with you all that we've been doing a lot of stewardship work on our Shooting Star Preserve that's 10 acres, that's adjacent to the Katy Mountain Preserve. And that's adjacent to the most recently purchased Hauschka 40 acres of the land bank. And a lot of the work that we're doing is conifer encroachment and really trying to enhance Garry Oak habitat. Our director of communications and outreach, Kelvin Baker, piled a really amazing video on the importance of that sort of stewardship work for Garry Oak habitat in our islands. And as our star of that video, we have Tom Pence, our volunteer extraordinaire for, I know, the San Juan Preservation Trust, as well as the Land Bank and other organizations in San Juan County. And so I will share that clip with Tanya if folks want to reference it. I know that's a lot of stewardship work, of course, that the Land Bank does on its preserves. And getting more information out there to the public can only help benefit that critical habitat across the county. And so with that, that's the end of my updates for you all. If you have any questions, I'm definitely available now or after the meeting as well. Thank you.
I have a question or a comment.
Go ahead, Peggy.
I feel like the trumpeter swans, smaller number of them this year than I'm used to seeing. So I'll be really curious about the results of the count. And also especially interested in knowing how it relates to past years. Because it just doesn't seem like there are many out there. Would you agree with that?
Yes, at least on Lopez.
On Lopez. Maybe they're all on San Juan and Orcas.
Well, and thanks for mentioning that, Peggy. And we'll definitely share the results and make sure that Tanya gets those. I'll ask Kathleen to work with her directly on getting that information to her. And it's my understanding that the last year, we'll see what the results say, but even last year, I think we had a slight decline. However, overall numbers in the Salish Sea and then other critical habitats outside of San Juan County have been increasing. And so Kathleen will share updated information with you all and then be able to provide that trend data and some context as well as to what may be going on across the broader landscape.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vicki, and thank you and the trust particularly for your work and perseverance with the conservation easement. We really look forward to that being finalized along with the grant funding that comes with it. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next we have our,
Did we do minutes at the last one? We approved the November minutes.
did I skip the minutes? I did skip the minutes. Let me get to Jane's update and then we'll go back and do the minutes.
Great.
So I'll welcome our new council liaison, Councilmember Fuller, coming to us from mobile from her car, it looks like. Jane, you're over in the corner of the screen. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Brian. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm literally just about to cross the border, so bear with me. My husband's driving though, so so I might have to put myself on mute for about 30 seconds while we go through that. But good morning, everybody, and it's my pleasure to be with you remotely and Sorry for not being with you in person. I love attending meetings in person, so I hope I can do that with you all soon. I wanted to just give you a very brief update on sort of what the direction our new council is moving in on a couple of things since we held a retreat this week on Monday and Tuesday. First thing I thought you might want to know, sharing a response commission and board representation. I have we're agreed close to the land bank as much as I'd like to in the past 2 years. So I'm welcoming this opportunity. I'm really excited about it, and I'm glad I don't have to live through the angst that you all did last year regarding renewal. I congratulate you all on a very successful renewal. So I'm really happy to know that that's going ahead. One moment, just while I move through customs. One sec.
Hopefully she's faster than I am.
Okay, sorry. Canadian Customs, friendly as always. All right. So back to all of
Right.
you. I wanted to let you know, you may know, some of you, that former council member Wolf was on, she was representing council on the MRC, on the Ecosystem Coordination Board, on Puget Sound Partnership, and also on Salmon Recovery Council. And I'm going to be stepping in behind her. So I will be sort of covering off that pretty large environmental portfolio, which I thought is provides some very nice synergy with being council liaison to the land bank. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm very happy to be taking on those various roles. So there were other committee, commission, and board assignments that we discussed, but those I thought were probably the most relevant for my working as a council liaison to your body. Also, way update. I wanted to let you know that one of the topics is
Jane, you're breaking up. I don't know whether you can hear us, but we're hearing you intermittently. Probably not hearing us either.
Canada's blocked her. I don't believe in conspiracy theories.
I don't think it's Canada.
Well, I think we should go ahead.
Well, let's give her a minute. No, she's off. Okay. Well, let's continue and jump back and go to the minutes from the November meeting. If Jane comes back on and has more to share, then we'll go back to her. So commissioners, any comments on the November minutes? Online, anybody? Marilyn, Anne Marie? Okay. It looks then like the November minutes are approved by mutual consent. And, okay, given that Jane has not returned yet, good morning, Aaron.
Good morning.
We will then go to chair and commissioners reports. Anybody in the room have anything?
I had the opportunity to help with the Channel Beach cleanup. We gathered at least 5 gallons of little minuscule tiny pieces of styrofoam that have been coming from the bank, and I think we got it all, but we'll see next
To
year.
the next storm.
Yeah,
It was a very nice picture in the stewardship report.
it was a great.
I enjoyed that picture. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Peggy.
So I hiked up Katy Mountain the other day when I was over here, and I loved it. It's beautiful. I had thought it was gonna go. It's gonna go up farther, or that I was gonna get up so that I could actually look out. And I think what my confusion is that I know it's connected up to Preservation Trust properties and other properties, but I couldn't tell that from the maps that are out there. So I was just thinking that it'd be an interesting discussion is whether our maps, at least one or other map on our properties, can show our connectedness to other properties that are public land. Because as it is now, you get to a place and there's a trail, and I'm pretty sure. So, that's just the thought. Because I think, just again, talking about partnerships, it's so important how we are connected to partner property. But you can't tell that when you're up there.
Okay.
There we go. That's just a little bit of
Good
feedback.
comment, thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Anne Marie?
Yeah, after our retreat, I had another retreat with a nonprofit last week. And we were asked at that retreat, kind of as an icebreaker, if someone was going to be introduced to Orcas, where would you take them? And I thought it was fascinating because the comments that came back were, and these are kind of like in order of priorities. It was first to the North Shore, then to Judd Cove, then to Coho Preserve, then Cascade Lake and Twin Lakes. And then there seemed to be a consensus that after that, they would all go to one of our parades. But what I was reminded of was the comment that Tyler made during our retreat, which was of the importance of connectivity of people in the land. And I just thought that was really kind of resounding that here it was coming out again in our own community, just arbitrarily by a group of people. So good job.
Affirmation. Thanks, Anne Marie. Anybody else? Commissioner comments?
Jade's back.
Who?
Jade's back. Jade's right there in the middle.
Oh,
I came
see
back.
Jane's back. I just wanted to finish the commissioner comments first.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I think we finished, Jane. You got interrupted by the airwaves, so.
I did. I apologize. It happens when you cross the border. Yeah. Okay. Listen, Brian, I won't go on much further, but just one or two other little things. I thought you might be interested to know that in December for the last meeting of the Islands Trust Council in Victoria, BC, I had the pleasure of attending in person, and Cindy was participating online. And we were invited the San Juan County Council was invited to meet with them for one morning of their retreat. And we discussed a number of things. And at the end of the meeting, it was very clear that what we would like to do is really reinvigorate our partnership with the Islands Trust Council going forward. And there's an agreement between the two bodies that dates back to really the late 90s, but it was updated again, I think in sometime in the late 2000s, I believe. And the chair, Peter Luckham of the Islands Trust Council, is very excited to renew that and further strengthen that relationship with San Juan County. One thing in particular that they would like to collaborate on is continued efforts to get an emergency response tow vessel that would be based in Sydney. And as some of you might be aware, outgoing Governor Inslee, who's now former Governor Inslee, made some very, very significant statements of support directed to the Canadian consulate in Seattle just before the end of the year, indicating that Washington State is very keen to work with the Canadian government further and more deeply on getting a vessel in place that would be an incredibly important oil spill prevention mechanism. But Islands Trust is doing much more proactively with the different islands in terms of oil spill response. So anyway, I just thought you might be interested to know that there's a keen interest on both sides to rebuild that relationship and connectivity. And I can tell you that there was a room full of very, very interested and passionate counselors who are very looking forward to more collaboration. And I have no doubt that they would be extremely interested in the work of the land bank. So I just wanted to let you know that. And I think that's all those are the high points I think I'll share with you. And going forward, I had a conversation with Lincoln yesterday about how I can best support the commission as your council liaison. And it will be my intention to share appropriate issues and points that come up in your meeting with my seatmates, my new seatmates, Councilmember Paulson McVeigh, so that they're tracking well what's coming up for in terms of the work that you're doing, what kinds of things are going to need council's attention to ensure that approval processes are smooth, and just to let them know the progress that you're making now that you've launched the year with a first retreat. And I think it was excellent. It was an excellent opportunity for Councilmember McVeigh to join you for the retreat. I unfortunately couldn't. I had to go down to Olympia, but I'm really glad that she could be there. And I mean, all three of us really need to learn more deeply about your strategy going forward and the things that you want to do, both with acquisition and stewardship. So that's the update from my side, Brian, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for the council member? Okay, that sounds like great news, James. So thank you very much. And we look forward to that sharing and to having you back in person with us. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thanks a lot. I'm going to have to sign off in a little bit from now, but I'm going to listen in.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So we are up to the financial report. Aaron, are you up to giving a financial report?
Yeah, sorry, not able to be there today. I've been sick for most of the week, but I think I'm able to get through this, try and make it kind of short and sweet. We've been talking about finance a lot lately, so I think nothing here is too much of a surprise, but we'll go through what we have for not just the fourth quarter, but looking at 2024 as a whole. So let me share my screen. Okay. So can everyone see this okay?
Could be a little larger. Can you blow it
Okay,
up
I
and-
can't see what you guys are looking at. Is that better? Larger?
Little bit.
We have it.
Good.
We have it on our.
Looks good to me.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start by taking a look at the Conservation Area Fund, and this is the fund where we receive our main funding source, which is the real estate excise tax. We'll start with cash. When you look at, where cash standing is, that number fluctuates based on most highly on how it coordinates with transfers to stewardship. Right there, sitting at 94,000 at the end of the year is no concern. At the end of the year, we make 2 transfers to stewardship. That's our fourth quarter operations and enhancement transfer, as well as our annual $500,000 transfer to the endowment fund. And cash we're able to fluctuate and pull from the LGIP, our local government investment pool, to keep the cash balance where we need it to be without holding on to too much money in that fund. So that's not a big concern, seeing that right there. So total cash between LGIP and cash compared to third quarter, we were down. It's down 239,000, and that's mostly due to fourth quarter transfers, as expected. No surprise there. The next item to look at would be general obligation bonds payable. That is our long-term debt. That does not include our interfund loan with the stewardship fund. So this is just bonds. And we, as per schedule, we made our payments on all bonds that we currently have. As a reminder, 3 of the bonds will be paid in full by 2026, with the remaining Conservation Futures and Turtleback bond going out to 2036. So that's where bonds sit and total cash for the fourth quarter. We're going to take a look now at revenues and expenditures for fourth quarter and the year. Let's first take a look here at the real estate excise tax, our REIT for the year. As we all know and had discussed throughout the year, we were a little worried early on when the first quarter and beginning and second quarter numbers for REIT were extremely low. At that time, we took the approach to try and defer some projects in stewardship to compensate for a REIT that we thought was going to be significantly lower than projected. We did make those adjustments in stewardship accordingly. That being said, third quarter and fourth quarter finished pretty strong for the year. And we were able to end up at 3.5 million in REIT revenue. So that was 93% of our budget at 3.75. So it ended up being higher than we had projected halfway through the year. So that turns out well for us in a planning sense. State grants, we did not receive any of those grant funds this year that we were intending to. 1.5 million of that was for grants pertaining to the acquisition of the Higgins property, lot mile addition. Those are still in works and we'll just plan to be accepting those here in early 2025. So although we didn't receive those, we still plan to, and cash will reflect that early in 2025. The other 250,000, those are for water rights. It's kind of a place marker for some water rights on Orcas. With some of the situation going on with Rosario, we weren't able to get a deal done. We were kind of hoping something might materialize this year, but it didn't. So that 250,000 in addition is for water rights as a placeholder. Another big item and good number to look at is revenue for the year for the LGIP, the local government investment pool. On the year, we took in 233,000 in investment funds. That's the great thing about the interest rate where it currently sits above 5%. Not sure exactly where the total is for fourth quarter. As a reminder, I didn't mention this off the get-go, but these are draft numbers. The month and year hasn't officially closed in the auditor's office. There's still a bunch of journal entries and things that haven't hit. I can't think of any huge numbers, so I think most of the changes will be minor, but I do want to make sure I point that out, that these numbers are in draft form because they are not finalized by the county yet. But that being said, 230,000 in interest revenue is a really good number. So that's really nice to see. Looking at expenditures in the conservation area fund, take a look at stewardship transfers. We made our $500,000 endowment transfer in the fourth quarter, as well as a 207,000 transferred to site enhancement and operations. And as you can see, the first three quarters, the fourth quarter projected would have, if we stuck to just budgeted and spent the budget, we would have transferred a total of 648,000 to site enhancement, because we made those deferrals and projects and in stewardship fund based on projected revenue from REIT throughout the year. We knew that we were going to be spending less. So when it turns out toward, when we get closer to actuals at the end of the year, through the calculation, that final transfer to stewardship was only 207,000. So that's reflected there in the total, the 500,000 in endowment and the 207,000 in site enhancement transfers. I'll speak a little bit about the interfund loan and debt service here. The reason that was higher was because the interest accrued on that loan was higher than projected, and that's because of the LGIP rate. So that was the $1 million as the second payment on the interfund loan. We have one more year of $1 million in principal in 2025, along with interest to finish up that loan in as a whole. So we have one more payment on that. But we had 117,000 in interest that went back into stewardship off of that loan. So where do we sit at the end of the year in terms of ending cash and investments? We're at 4.9 million in total cash and investment funds compared to 5.4% budgeted, and that's really just because we didn't accept those grant funds or receive those grant funds in 2024, as I talked about earlier. So in reality, being $500,000 short of budget, you can see when we do receive those grant revenue or those grant dollars for the acquisition of Watmau Addition, we'll see our cash increase from there. I'm going to move down to the stewardship fund. I'm going to try and back this out since this one is a little bit bigger. Is that still easy for you guys to see?
Aaron, this is Mike. Can I ask a quick question before we move to the next fund? Can you tell me and refresh my memory on what the sale of land was in fourth quarter?
Okay, yep, I see what you're saying there. That first, fourth quarter. Did you say fourth quarter or first quarter?
Fourth quarter, 446,000 revenue.
Okay, yeah, that total. So that total, the first quarter, that was Katy Mountain sale of the conservation easement to the trust. And then the fourth quarter, that 25,000, that was from county roads. And Lincoln, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think that's for the False Bay Creek Road easement.
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, that's for the road easement there project that they're doing there. So we got compensated for that.
Good. Thanks.
Okay. So looking at the stewardship fund here, total cash and investments, we ended the year at 7.7 million. A little bit of extra money in there in the local government investment pool, mostly because of the transfer, the endowment transfer, as well as the 100,000 or the $1 million that comes from the conservation area fund for the interfund loan. That $1 million and the interest goes directly back into the LGIP. But as a total here, just for the fourth quarter, that's numbers mostly reflected due to the endowment transfer. We're going to look at revenues and expenditures in the stewardship fund here. Some items of note. Investment, again, we hold a little bit more money in our endowment fund, or the LGIP fund. So interest revenue was a little bit higher than it was in the conservation area fund at 302,000. That's a great number, much more than we have seen in the past with that high rate. Prior year refund, third quarter, just as a reminder, that was from reimbursement from the trust for work that was done on North Shore. So that's what that references. We have the $1 million transfer for principal from the interfund loan. And then, as I mentioned, fourth quarter transfers from conservation area fund. We have our endowment and the 207,000 in site enhancement, which was 83% of projected and what was budgeted, and that was due to reducing some of the projects done in the year to match with projected revenues from REIT revenue. And then finally, going to look at expenditures here as you look at a whole between operations costs and then property management and capital. You can kind of see we did spend significantly less in capital expenditures and a little bit less than property management and maintenance, for a total of 87% of our budget for the year. And then finishing off, seeing where ending cash and investment funds, as you can see, ending investment balance is significantly higher than budgeted, and that's just because of cash transfers. That decision to keep more cash in our endowment fund and investment fund, we're really just moving a bunch of that money over into the investment fund so we can capitalize on interest rates right now. But as a whole, net revenues over expenditures in conservation or in the stewardship fund for last year, this year, and the next year, that number is going to be significantly higher due to that payback principal and interest on that loan. So that's why those numbers look really high for revenue over expenditure. And that's all I have for you guys. Overall, good year. We remained flexible with expected REIT revenue by tracking that throughout the year, and staff did a good job of making adjustments when necessary. So overall, a good year.
Okay, commissioners, what do you have for Aaron? Anything?
Just for so we don't forget, or I don't forget. Expenditures or stewardship, property management and capital are really our biggest investment, ongoing operations. And I think it'd be interesting for me to know how much of that is labor, how much of that is contract, and how some analysis of $2.5 million that is our operations. That some sub analysis periodically shows us, here's how we're spending against our budget for labor, for contracts, for whatever else is a big number item. So that's just a note maybe for Maryland to, when you get together and start talking about the new way we're going to present these financials, et cetera, that we include some analysis of operating costs, because I think we're doing a lot of work, and it's good work. And it's good to note that, how much we're investing in that.
Okay. Aaron, did you hear that comment?
I did.
Brian, may I comment?
Yeah, of course.
So Mike just verbalized exactly what I just wrote down on my piece of paper that I'm taking notes on. And that is that while I appreciate more than you guys know, because I worked in the system for a long time, how hard Aaron's working on this, the one thing where we have any, where we as commissioners might need to have a little more oversight than we do is in how our administrative and stewardship funds are spent, in the details of those operations. And those numbers don't necessarily show up here, obviously, because the format isn't designed to give that specificity. But I think Mike and I can talk about that and maybe come up with some smaller report or something, some way for us to understand how the expenditures are changing from year to year, what kinds of decisions the staff is having to make within this framework to keep things rolling. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Mike and Marilyn, thank you both. I think your comments reflect something that we talked quite a bit about at our retreat last week, which is allowing the commissioners to have more understanding of certain aspects of the budget, and particularly our stewardship investments, and going toward possibly some financial guidelines. So that's something that I think we'd all like to see coming up on a future agenda for discussion. It's a meeting topic. Okay. If there's nothing else, then we'll go on to the director's report. Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, well, I've got a few things for you, but we can just keep going with this conversation because really mostly what I wanted to do is have a conversation, discussion about the retreat and the retreat notes that were compiled. Right now, you're in that section the financial, the forecast of anticipated financial resources. So one of the recommendations there that we all came up with was to look at this potential set of financial guidelines. And so Mike is listed there.
I was looking over your shoulder.
Along with myself, Marilyn and Aaron. So we'll be getting that going, and I don't have a timeline for that or anything, but that was certainly one of the things that you all were interested in doing. And the other bullet points, I think, follow through with exactly what we just talked about. So that's good. Other things in the report or in the retreat notes, I don't know that I'm going to go through each and every one of these, frankly. But the theme of slowing down or pausing was certainly something that came forward in terms of how much acquisition we're doing, how much activity we've got going, certainly providing more public access opportunities, and really thinking of this as a time to really do an assessment of where we are, and then go forward from there. Lots of other things, lots of other bullet points about that, thinking about our role with ecological stewardship and how that fits together with public access, how we fit in this question of doing proactive wildfire protection, and also thinking about our existing obligations before we take on new ones. So those are some of the key themes through those sections. And do people want to talk about those before I keep just working my way through this?
Well, I'll just say that personally, I really appreciate how these notes were put together because it was very readable and concise. So maybe that was John and you, Lincoln, but good job on that. In terms of kind of pushing the pause button, do we have to? I mean, I feel in some ways, I feel like because of reauthorization, we were kind of on pause in terms of acquisitions already for a while. So I'm curious about that and how long does, like, there's work to be done.
We have this arm's length list of acquisitions that we're gonna talk about later.
Yes.
So, I don't know, Lincoln.
Yes. Well, we're not necessarily going to come to a complete pause here. We do have some acquisitions in the works at various stages. How real some of them are is another question, but we'll talk them through. I do think it's important for us to move forward on at least a couple of these, because we've definitely been holding back, in looking at the question of reauthorization and not wanting to overcommit before we knew the outcome of that election. So we do have, you will be seeing some projects coming forward. I do think that one of the elements out of the retreat that's really important is to be cognizant as we're considering new acquisitions of what it means, what the implications are for stewardship. And I think that will shape the kinds of acquisitions that we're doing going forward to a certain degree.
Mhm.
The other piece of our reality is the fact that we have to be opportunistic. We're going to get, people who are extremely interested in particular projects. They may not be our number one priority, but they're going to be somewhere on our list. So we'll have to thread our way through that as it happens.
Well, I'll just say I totally support the idea of when we're talking about acquisitions, really understanding what our obligations are from the stewardship and staffing perspective. So I support that too.
Okay. Sure.
I thought, with just my interpretation of the slowdown was not about acquisition, but about new access projects in light of opening 4+ in the last year, to be able to, have the bandwidth to really monitor how those get established. But that's different in my mind from acquisition.
I'll say, that's the way I heard it too.
Okay.
Me too.
Me too.
All right, any other commissioner comments? Okay, hearing none.
We can go on.
Lincoln, do you have more on the notes?
Yeah, a little bit more.
Okay, because I have one comment on it, but go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, I just wanted to come back to the stewardship question. So stewardship priorities was clearly something we talked a fair amount about. And this notion of doing triaging the work that needs to be done in light of our capacity and recognizing that we have limited capacity, I think is going to be important as part of this assessment as we move forward. What we don't do is going to be as important as what we decide to do. So we'll have to make conscious decisions about that. And we'll be talking about those priorities a lot going forward. And last, I don't know, I'm not gonna touch on the communications part. I think we've hashed through communications so many times. And last year went really well, and I'm not seeing, I thought there would kind of be a bit of a drop off, but you know, I think we actually kicked into higher gear last year, and we're gonna continue with a lot of that. So you'll see a lot of activities, you'll see a lot of Facebook posts and other media postings out there through the course of the year.
Yeah, I think we had pretty good consensus about communications and a good feeling about it during our meeting. And I understand that there's more to come, so we'll have news along the way. Peggy.
I think, well, I know, on February 3rd, the renewal committee or those that can attend are going to have a meeting, and part of what we're going to talk about is some of the funds that we have available and how that might work with setting up the Friends.
Okay. I would hope that maybe you'll talk about the possibility of additional volunteer efforts, AKA Friends, too.
Right. That, I think that's part of that. Yeah.
To me, that's at least as important as money, if not more.
Right.
Okay, so my only comment on the meeting and the notes is, I agree, these are very good notes, good summary of the meeting. There's a lot packed in here, I think, for future discussion. And I have an arm's length list of future agenda topics, which I guess I'll share later with the commission and with staff. And I would hope that we can gear our meetings so that we can have some time and space for real discussion on those meaty topics during the meetings.
I would just say, you know, we've got a fair amount of time here in this meeting. So if we want to talk about that list, we can do that now rather than trying to cram it in later in the meeting.
Sure. Well, if you're asking, I can read my list now. And this is mostly stuff that's that I took from the meeting. some that I had on my list already. So you guys don't have to, write this down. I'll send it to you. So I'll just read off my list. False Bay Creek mitigation, which was actually attached to today's staff materials, but we need to have a discussion and action on that, I guess, at the next meeting probably. Something that I had asked to put on the agenda for the retreat that we didn't have time and room for, and it's a relatively minor topic, was what I would call accessibility. And it is an access project. When I say accessibility, I mean accessibility for elders and disabled people. I think not a big topic, but I think we should devote a little attention to that. Tribal relations, that was something that was gonna be on the agenda. Frankie was there, so placeholder. Friends group we talked about, we can hopefully have some more news on that. Stewardship priorities, we talked about staff capacity and organizational structure, which fits into that. It's, I guess, under the topic of triage. I think that was the name I gave it, and I'm not sure that was a good name, but how to be most efficient and help the stewards to work together to do what we need to do. Under that topic comes the idea of having consistent stewardship standards for all of the islands, including one thing we've talked before, which is infrastructure standards. Something that's been mentioned in the past, but as far as I know, we've never done anything about. Review of the acquisition matrix criteria. I think we're gonna get into that a little bit today. And the budget explanation, financial guidelines, which I just mentioned. So that's my list. I'll forward it to you. And again, I would like the list of carryover future agenda topics to appear on our agendas, just to keep it in mind for everybody. So that's it for me on the retreat notes. I thought it was a very good meeting.
Wasn't there some discussion about the amount of time and effort put into the property management thing that we do? We buy property and then we say, here's our short-term plan and temporary plan, and then here's
Stewardship and
we
management.
spend a
plan.
year, what do you call it?
Yeah.
Stewardship and management plan.
Stewardship and management. There was some discussion about the amount of effort and energy that goes into those reports. That, should it be considered, should we try to lessen that? So that we have folks available for everything. So I think there was a discussion at the meeting about that.
I think that did come up. It's definitely part of that discussion. Is it worth the effort? Does it pay off? I would like to have that.
And I think it'd be a great opportunity for the stewards to talk to us.
Yeah.
As we go through this, explain it. And the second thing is about that is that we had a great discussion about what they write down, ecology versus recreation, or all the other different ways of framing. Is this a trail project or is this a preservation project, et cetera?
Right.
And I think when we do acquisitions, if we focus on what it is, why are we doing this deal? Then that should carry forward in the reports back from the stewards on not monthly, but once a year or something. About this was an ecology project, blah, 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 and here's how we're doing. In other words, keep that string of why we did this.
Yeah.
And where are we in our accomplishment of the goal. In our review of each of the projects, et cetera. I think that will make it live on.
Yeah.
The reason that we made that acquisition.
Well, that's one thing I think that should be reflected in the management plans.
I don't know if it is because I don't know if, I haven't spent much time reading, to be honest with you. I appreciate the effort put in. But if we're gonna focus on why we did this acquisition, when we made this acquisition, then we should carry forward with the stewardship, because that's where it comes to life.
Right. In fact, one of the things that I've suggested to Lincoln, Mike, is that ought to be a criteria. Generally, when we look at the matrix of future acquisitions, one of the things that we ought to consider is the general anticipated future restoration and management costs.
Yeah.
Could vary a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Peter.
I know on that topic, when these acquisitions are presented to council, the conservation values for that particular acquisition are noted. And if those could be followed through, that would be helpful. So it lists whether it's for recreation or for scientific or for other of our values that we use.
So we could just as easily itemize those up front for ourselves, right?
Yes, and the management plans would be a good place.
Okay. And usually it's a combination, I think.
Oh, yes.
Most cases.
Just comment regarding the management plans. I mean, do I love writing management plans? No, but I mean, I do think they are, you know, a clear, concise management plan linked to the budget with a, you know, a well-defined public engagement process. I mean, I think it's key to pretty much everything we do. It makes things predictable, makes things transparent, and it forces staff to sit down together and kind of figure out, look closely at a property and make a plan for 10 years, which will evolve. But I mean, I think I would pause everything before pausing management, personally.
My comment wasn't to pause them. It was, is there a way, my understanding was they're very time consuming to prepare. If I'm not, if they're not, then this is not relevant. I was just wondering if they are, is there a way to be more concise or consolidated? You know, I don't know enough. I'm just throwing it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair question, and I think we've all tried over the last several years to standardize, you know, with Aaron's leadership, to standardize a format and a rough length. I mean, some preserves are more complex than others, some are simpler, so, you know, they can sort of be in two styles. One is for publicly accessible preserves, it's a lot more detail there. One for preserves that aren't open to the public, but it feels like they're manageable to me. We've come a long way, I think, in the formatting and tying the budget tables to our plan.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna need to go back and look at some of those, in all fairness, to make sure that I've got the same study and basis that you guys have. So I'll just pick a couple and go read them.
So without getting into that topic in detail now, I want to suggest that we agendize it again for a future meeting and have a whole discussion about that, because I think it's fundamental and definitely worthwhile.
You talking about the management report?
Management plans. Yeah.
I know we've talked about them on and off and sporadically throughout the last couple of years, but be great. We could learn a lot.
Yep. Okay.
So I have a question kind of along those lines, Peter. For the North Shore one, and sure, going in, we all knew that it was gonna be pretty expensive and involved. How accurate were you able to kind of predict some of those costs?
That's a great question. We were close. Yeah, we
Wow,
were, yeah.
that's impressive.
If you go back to the interim management plan, which has the budget that took us through that roughly two year construction, you know, planning and construction process, we're pretty much right on in there. And then the long-term management plan is a much smaller budget for stewardship going forward. But yeah, I mean, take a look at it. Some of the categories, the wording changed a little bit of things, but the overall budget and the big projects identified, we're pretty close.
And that was a big one.
We benefited from some grant funding, you know, and benefited from burning down the building instead of hauling it away, things like that, which weren't totally predictable, but yeah, it's pretty close.
No small task.
That would be a question for Aaron Rock. How did that look from that? Or Lincoln?
What do you do with
Eric's
those bank
gone.
reports after the project? I mean, North Star has been launched, maybe, North Star. North Star has basically been introduced to the public. We've completed a lot of that work. Do you then go back and issue a report to yourself about just
As
basically
built.
answering Peggy's question?
Yeah,
Bring it on, I think it's great. if you-
No, I mean, the interim plan in that case was, you know, to try to capture the predicted construction, you know, all the opening costs and everything. And, you know, the 10-year plan is now, you know, we're working through year one of that and, you know, we'll just consult it periodically and then revise it, you know, in a decade, but, I
You
mean, I
do that
looked at,
internally?
pardon?
You do that with your team internally,
I mean, yeah, my team, I mean,
or
you know,
whatever you call
yeah, Tyler and I, and Aaron's been involved in that. I don't know if I'm not really answering your question, maybe because I'm not sure what your question is, but
One way it also lives on is, just witness Tanya being able to refer people in the public that call and ask X, Y, and Z, and she can refer them to the plans that I don't want to speak for you.
No,
but-
absolutely. When I have questions, I go to the management plans before, you know, somebody, maybe I don't know, like, how can we have a private event there? Or how many people can come? You know, all of that, those guidelines are dictated in the management plan. So that's great for me as far as outreach. And if I don't know, I can't just speed dial my steward. So that's my template.
all right, like I was on silent.
Mike, I would just go back and reiterate your previous statement about, I don't know whether, you know, whether we do a retro look at the costs of per each individual management plan, but your suggestion about looking at least overall at the costs of contracting, our, you know, staff, labor, materials and so on, to take a look at that process overall in terms of overall stewardship costs is,
Yeah.
would be very worthwhile.
I'm very encouraged by your response about what you do with these plans. You know, how important they are in actually driving, because a lot of times people do long-term plans and they don't look at them until long-term ago, you know, just, they don't use them. They just, you know, check a box. I'm glad to hear that you use them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should always anticipate staff turnover and, you know, loss of institutional knowledge. I mean, the plans at least buffer against that a little bit and, you know, and I think they've been pretty well vetted internally and with the public and then ultimately
Yeah.
approved by the commission. So it prevents us from wandering aimlessly in these preserves and, you know, kind of like, here's the general plan. Doesn't mean you're locked into every little thing you said you're gonna try to do, but I think it's important.
Yeah. Just want to add to Tanya's comment before I recognize Anne Marie, that, I'm glad to hear that you refer to management plans and that they're useful to you. My thought was that they should also be available to everybody in the public, so I hope that you will reserve a slot in the new website to archive those management plans so that everybody can access them.
Well, everyone has access to them if they ask. It's tough because we run into, as I'm learning with websites or, you know, storage, PDFs take up a lot. So I don't know that we can host every management plan, or maybe we archive something else. Because I've thought about that in the past, but, so that's something I'll talk to Darren about. I've asked him, I've got a couple questions about, if there's a separate way to host things, or maybe we archive them on the county website.
Yeah.
So we have options.
Good,
Yeah.
okay.
Do
Thanks.
the management plans have a summary page or a summary section at the beginning of it, the summary?
It's an overview, yeah.
So maybe you could just do the summary instead of the entire.
Yeah.
It's a great
There's
idea.
lots of pictures and things like that, that's
Mhm.
pretty data intensive.
Sure, that is a great idea.
I
Not right.
know that, whenever we get, a management plan for approval. And it comes like the North Shore plan came in this agenda packet. I always ask Aaron to break it out and send it to me separately, because I archive them in my system. And I don't know how many of you also want to do that, but if it's useful, I've suggested to Aaron that it might be useful to all of you too. So, no, I'm not forgetting Anne Marie.
Yeah, I thought North Shore might be a good example of an opportunity to evaluate our internal communication. And I'm thinking with our county council members, because I know there was a lot of discussion about the road into North Shore. And I wonder if there are opportunities there for us in terms of our planning, so that those kinds of discussions, which seem to, well, whatever, they could have been diffused if we had known certain pieces of information ahead of time about the road, say, for example. And I think there were other examples there too. And they may be personality driven, but it's just an opportunity with some of our big acquisitions to look at, especially when they have a lot of public access, the relationships internally and how that information is communicated.
Okay, thank you. Lincoln, your director's report kind of got swept up.
Oh, no, this is good. This is
Yeah,
largely
good.
what I'd hoped for. I will add on the management plan, part of this, that obviously, first of all, the management plans are a requirement for us, as part of our ordinance. And so we do those, and just as we do budgets, the commission approves them, recommends them to the county council, who does the final approval. One of the issues I think we have had with the council, we've had a couple of issues, because this all goes to council as part of a budget. If it's an annual budget, they get that with the other, 35,000 pages of budget. And so it's very difficult for them to focus on specific elements in that larger context. And with interim budgets, it can be more confusing, because in some cases, the auditor's office makes that presentation, and we're not really sure exactly what's going to be included or what's not. We've had significant issues with that in the past. So I think refining that process, and this is something I talked about with Jane, is important to make sure that if we've got projects that are going in interim budgets, that the project summary is very clearly understood by the county council. And with regard to management plans, it may be that we just need to break those out and talk to them separately outside of the budget process, even though the official approval is as part of that budget. So I'll be talking that through with Jane Moore to see how we can make sure that they have a better understanding. Because they need to understand the management plan too. When they go out to a preserve and they see somebody driving a dune buggy, they should know that that's not what we did.
Yeah. I wonder if Mike's idea of separating out an executive summary would be helpful there. I mean, give them something so they don't have to read the whole thing.
Maybe so. Yeah, or at least I can go and give them a presentation.
Yeah,
they'll have the opportunity to raise questions. I don't really have anything more in the director's report. I did want to come back though to the False Bay Creek wetland mitigation, even though that should be under the stewardship section of the meeting. And I inadvertently left this off the agenda, even though I gave you the materials This is not something that is new to us. And I will say that we've had quite a bit of back and forth with Public Works staff and talking about our mitigation policy, and talking about how this particular project fits within that. And we have made a number of adjustments to accommodate that policy. The one thing, and this is also something that I talked about with Jane yesterday. Obviously, one of our big issues, I think, as a county, is the fact that the state seems to be moving toward a model of no net loss of wetlands. And when we're doing county infrastructure projects, there's often very limited opportunity to do mitigation. You're kind of stuck with what you've got, and it's difficult if you're trying to buy an additional piece of property to make that work. So oftentimes, if there's a land bank property that's in the vicinity, that's something that is going to be attractive to them. And we've tried our best to accommodate that, but I think as a county, we need to have a deeper conversation about other potential avenues than just using us in some cases as the default. I would say, in this case, looking at Baylor Hill Road, there are some amazing properties that we'd love to purchase that could be great mitigation properties. They're not for sale. So the project needs to be done. We've been working on doing restoration on False Bay Creek Preserve. This mitigation effort really kind of fits within that. So I think in this case, we're in a pretty good place. One of the other key issues that we have addressed in this agreement is the length of time that Public Works will take responsibility for the project, for monitoring these plantings that go in, for dealing with fencing questions. We have lengthened that. So I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to accommodate what we were getting at with that mitigation policy. Understanding that we're not close to the perfect solution. Hopefully in the future, and one of the things in the mitigation policy is this question of looking at some kind of advanced mitigation project where the county actually goes ahead and identifies a key property for conservation with the understanding that it's going to be used for mitigation. And that's something we'll have to keep working toward, but we're not close to that.
Mitigation bank.
Right.
So I will, I'll bring this back. I think we're really pretty much done with this agreement, honestly. We've addressed what we can, but you can give it a little bit more thought. I know Public Works is anxious to move forward with their project, so they're under a tight timeline at this point.
Yeah. Tim.
I actually read through this again and noticed that there have been changes made that answered a lot of the questions that the commission had before. The only thing that was lacking for me was a map of showing exactly where it was going to take place. There was a map, but when it printed out for me, it was hard to tell where it was.
This one.
Oh, I didn't get that, or I didn't see that. Sorry.
Well, that's,
Was the last
there's
page.
another issue when we give you things and then you print them out and
That makes sense to you?
I know I've had experience more than once in the past couple of weeks of printing something out, having it turn into something completely different.
Yeah,
So,
I got 1/10 of that or something in the middle.
right.
So, okay, thank you.
I will just say that I didn't have a problem with this, this particular, transaction, imperfect though it may be. And the only reason that I mentioned we shouldn't act on it today is that it's not on the agenda. I don't think we can legally. So let's put it on the agenda next time.
Yep.
The only other thing I would say is that, and I really appreciate that staff has had the discussions with Public Works, that they're understanding our thing. I would like to see that memorialized on paper, so that this agreement goes out with a copy of our mitigation policy and a specific statement that we don't want to do this in the future.
All right, so before we move on, I will put one thing up. If you have that presentation, the first couple of slides. And this goes back to when the commission moves forward with projects. In the project summary, there's often a provision for this or that. And the project we're gonna talk about right now is Fraser Homestead Preserve. And that was purchased in 2006, I believe. A provision was retained or was included, allowing the commission to resell a portion of the property. And it was pretty flexible in terms of what could happen. So it was envisioned that maybe it would be a farmstead, and it would be under conservation easement. The other consideration was the fact that the property, this is for everyone who's listening, on San Juan Island is adjacent to American Camp. And we've known for quite some time, looks like we're gonna have trouble pulling this presentation up. I hope not. Anyway, it's next to American Camp, and we've known that we believe that the Lyman Cutler cabin was actually on this portion of our property. So we've got two things going on Fraser Homestead. As you know, we're trying to lease a portion of the property, the northern portion, for agriculture, and that's going forward. This is the southern two lots that we're talking about, and we've gone through this process with the Park Service. They've had it appraised now, and they're basically ready to move forward with the acquisition.
Wow.
So what I'm wanting from the commission is basically final approval to do that. Obviously, the next step would be that it would go into the council process for disposal of surplus property. Oh, look, here's my button.
Good
So,
job.
I was kind of surprised the appraisals were completed, or the appraisal was completed of those two lots. So you can kind of see it on here. It's a little small, but it says SJC Land Bank Fraser in the solid green area. And then those southern two lots adjacent to the national park are what we're talking about. The appraisal came back for the 24 acres approximately that we're talking about of 1.28 million.
Wow.
So that's the price the federal government will pay. I'm extremely eager. We can actually go on to the next slide.
So, quick question on that. Is that
Yes.
20 acres that we'd be reselling?
It's about 24.
And what's the
It's
zone?
two parcels.
Okay, so two building development rights.
Exactly. So a couple of things about this. Obviously, part of our trail goes through this property, but it's consistent with what the Park Service has done on American Camp. Also, you can see that little area on the northwestern piece. That is the Island Marble area that the Preservation Trust put in. So that will continue to operate in that way. What will not happen, most likely, we had this as a temporary lease area for the shepherds who are leasing the rest of the property. And I think once the Park Service takes ownership of it, that will end. We're not sure exactly when they'll take ownership of it, but I don't think the Park Service is receptive to a lease. They have had many, many issues with leasing property for other purposes. I don't think they want to do that. I am very much wanting to wrap this up as quickly as possible. Because obviously there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, particularly within our federal government. And while I think this is set in stone pretty much, I think it's in our interest to move as quickly as we can to pull this money back into the program and use it for other purposes.
So great.
So Lincoln, do you need a motion to do the resale, or what are you looking for from the commission for?
I think that's probably a good idea if we have a motion to go.
Okay, I move that we go with the resale to the National Park Service as proposed by staff.
I second.
Should include the value. Should include
I'll add that.
at $1,280,000.
What are you saying, Mike?
I'm just saying, I don't know how this works because I'm not a parliamentarian.
Just the way you said it.
We should put the dollar amount, that we
Yeah.
approve it, sale for $1,280,000.
The friendly amendment to the motion.
Right. Okay, all in favor of that, please say aye.
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 I.
Okay, motion
Alright.
carries.
That's
Done.
excellent.
And I am done.
Yeah, great.
Okay. We're a little behind time and we have a lengthy executive session. But I think we can, let's take 7 minutes, say 10:05 to reconvene.
Good.
Let's report.
I am ready.
A little
What time is
behind.
it? 10:08. Can be brief. Notes, there's a lot happening or coming up. I have submitted a press release. It should go out, I imagine today or tomorrow we have more art on the preserves with Alchemy this winter. They're going to focus on the west side of San small pieces, and then bring folks back to their studio on their property, so winter weather won't interfere. There'll be a firewood lottery. Just completed the press release. I need to get that out today to Aaron Andrews. So, starting next week, through the end of the month, folks will have the opportunity to email us if they have an interest in surplus wood from one of the landscape restoration projects that happen on Mount Grant. So about 8 to 10-ish. I think Jacob said 1/3 to 1/2 core, depending on the size of like a mid-sized pickup. People will be responsible for coming to pick up and schedule, but we will choose via lottery from the names that are entered on the 3rd, I think the 3rd of February, first Monday in February. Margot has been working on events and educational events around the Great Backyard Bird Count, which takes place the 14th through the 17th of February. So we've got some organization or some partner events with the San Juan Islands Audubon. So there'll be some education events, how to bird, and then some birding walks on each island, one on San Juan, Orcas, and Lopez. And I need to put that in the press release and get that out. And then I also wanted to ask if the communications committee, that was at least our last iteration, if you all would like to continue. And if so, I can send an email out today or next week, looking at getting a monthly date again. So I'm getting a thumbs up from Anne Marie. So I will do that.
Who else was that, Tanya?
Oh, gosh, who else was that? Myself, Lincoln, Anne Marie,
Mike and Amy.
and Amy. Yeah. I just figured I'd look at the last.
Amy's not here.
Amy's here, she's listening.
Oh, she is.
So yeah, so just expect an
Oh,
email,
it's
no
a-
pressure
sorry.
if you don't want to continue, and if somebody wants to replace, we can work all that out. Just wanted a thumbs up for that. And also, I talked to Katie Blethyn yesterday, who is the director for Master Gardeners, San Juan County, and they will be hosting their online native plant sale goes live January 25th. And so they did a nice little cross promotion for us with the wildflower, how to make a wildflower meadow that Eliza did. So just put that out there. I'll help share their information as well. We had a great planting event. I don't think we have any San Juan Island stewards, so I'll say we had a really well-attended planting party at Beaverton Marsh Preserve on Wednesday, this week. And then there's more, I think, for the future, and I do know that also Shauna has been talking to Spring Street School here, the international school on the island, and working with them with the science class. So she'll be doing a presentation, and then they'll have their science class come out a few different times to learn about weeding, noxious weeds, planting, things of that nature.
Turn to my place.
So there's look in the news, things are gonna start popping up pretty soon. And then going in the future, we also have some Arbor Day things coming up, and I believe hopefully by next meeting, we should have a live website. I expect to see a draft next week.
Great, wow. I read in the stewardship report that the 300 copies of the Wildflower Meadow Guide have sold out.
Yeah, I think I have 10 right now.
There was discussion about whether to do a second printing.
We will do a second printing. We're
good.
just sorting out
I
funding.
would be for that.
We are for that too.
Anything that popular, I think that really hits people.
Yeah, it's been a great resource too. Lots of great feedback. And that's, yes, Mike.
So I'm trying to figure out the timing of when we start talking a little bit about the Grange project at Beaver Creek.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, so, I think it's been about maybe not, 6 months since we approved all that, and they've done a lot of fencing and other things. Are we including any kind of an update about what's going on there in any of our communications? And two, I guess this is even before that, should we ask them to come give us an update at one of our meetings here?
We can, I would say that
I
might
guess that's more.
fall maybe more, at least that piece, maybe with Charlie, since he's the ag coordinator, but I can talk to Charlie.
Well, I don't know,
We
I
can
mean, it's
sort
up
that
to
out.
everybody else, I don't know how often we wanna, but it's a unique project, we've never done this before, and it's very visible, and
I definitely have shared their communications via our channels. I mean, social media, their press releases and or posts that they put up, but that's easy enough to do, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I was putting out the same kind of like, I want to hear about this.
Yeah.
So we got caught up in council scheduling and we're now on track to actually complete the lease. It has not been completed. So that we'll be scheduling a public hearing on Tuesday for the 11th for both of the leases for the council to consider and wrap those up.
February 11th.
Yeah.
And then it should probably be after that.
I don't think that there was a reporting requirement in the lease, as I recall, but I think an invitation to come at some point and maybe periodically to just talk to us would be nice.
Yeah, I would appreciate it.
I'm sure Roger would love to come
I'm sure he
in.
would. It's his building.
Okay. That it, Tanya?
That's it for
Good.
me, unless there's
Thank
more
you.
questions. Is anybody online? Double check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, stewardship report, and we have a management plan to approve. The long-awaited North Shore management plan.
Yeah, exciting.
Yep. Oh, thank you both. Is
Yeah.
somebody gonna present on that or?
I don't think there's any surprises in
Yeah.
there. You've all reviewed it. At the end, there's a table of the public comments.
Yeah.
Or the comments we received. So just 3, which I think is a positive thing. And I think also part of that's because we did a lot, or District 2 did a lot of public outreach tours, and there were no surprises. I mean, I'll just plug that it's like 27 total pages, but really maybe 20 pages of content, so,
I can get there.
yeah.
And an executive summary.
My God. So, I mean, that came when I first started, keep these, short, but have substance. So anyway, there's opportunity there. But, yeah, I think it's been a good opportunity also to, we email the tribes to let them know and invite them and, engaging in our ideas. And so that's about it. I think it's pretty good to go, Peter.
Yeah, I would just say if the commissioners haven't seen the public comments, I would encourage it. We had a very complimentary letter from the Swinomish tribe. And I thought a pretty complimentary note from one of our most critical neighbors. So, that was a journey with the neighborhood, and the journey continues, but things are going well. So, yeah.
I commented to Peter on the boat ride over that I appreciated the comments and responses being attached, which I've never seen to one of our management plans, but that is a standard big agency thing that I'm sure Peter's used to, and I certainly am. And I think it's really good practice. Appreciate seeing that.
Yeah, I think we've been doing that the past couple of years.
I really appreciated reading this so much feedback.
Yes.
That was great.
And I think it's good to let the public know in their next plan that we are working with the tribes that much and they're responding. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add that, that was a fairly drawn out public engagement process, a couple of years. Tanya did a fantastic job of supporting that, and really great to have Aaron's involvement in, co-writing this management plan.
Thank you all. Teamwork.
Yeah.
So if we are ready to take a vote, for approval on that, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move.
Okay, Peggy moves. Is there a second?
I second it.
I'm looking for Anne Marie, but
Yeah.
I'm seeing a vacant seat, so I'll second.
Tim
Well, no,
seconded.
Tim second.
Oh, did Tim second?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Tim.
Well, you were from Orcas, I figured that would be appropriate.
Doesn't matter. Okay, good. All for approval?
Aye.
Opposed? The North Shore Management Plan is approved. Congratulations and thank you.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, anything else on the stewardship report?
I was just gonna plug that, Margot's doing the stewardship report now. Did it for the last 6 years and, she's taken it on and,
6 years?
yeah. It goes fast, doesn't it? Margot hasn't been doing. Right.
Oh, that you've been doing, okay.
Pardon me.
It's
Yeah,
not
Margot
very
has
okay.
taken it over
Yes.
in, 2025. So
Good.
grateful for that added support.
I thought it was very succinct and a lot of good information.
I don't have that much to report for Lopez. I had a nice, sit down with Tim and Peggy earlier this week and go over the Lopez work plan and potential projects. So it's a good discussion. What else? It's the annual mystery and whose large marine debris is deposited at the spit. Every winter, something seems to float up there, and this year it was like a 30-foot section of a dock.
Oh my gosh.
I know, and has a lot of concrete on it. Pretty bizarre, but I have located the owner and they were making plans to get it removed and the high tides, so hopefully it doesn't stick around for too long.
Nice picture of the flood.
Yeah, the high tides, can really flood the trail, and it's hard to see in the photo, but I have been posting a seasonal closure sign for there. It doesn't actually fully block the trail, but, just for when it's partially flooded, the trail, people will try to skirt around the trail onto the marsh, and so I'm really just trying to discourage that.
The picture I saw, I don't think you needed to post.
Yeah,
the
in
sign.
the picture, there was probably about a foot of water at the map sign, so that was, 9.5 foot high.
King tide. Yeah, it's impressive.
Good. Yeah. Thanks, Amanda. Anybody else? Peter? Anything else?
Nothing that's not in the stewardship report.
Okay. So,
I want to kind of follow up on that because I think as we get more and more of these high tides, it's going to be interesting to kind of revisit some of these trails perhaps and see how we can manage for that. If we can, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty wet out there. And even down at Watmore, I mean, it's coming up higher and higher, so. What it is, but good challenge.
I know at Fisherman Bay Spit, it does impact stewardship in that all the driftwood changes positions and covers the trail.
Right.
So that's always a fun day.
yeah.
Or 2 or 10.
I've
Or
been
do it
noticing
again,
that
or do
on
it again.
Orcas too, particularly our East Shore waterfront park is, trail is completely blocked. But, folks were down there the other day. Okay, well, if there are no more comments, we have a second public comment period, but,
Anybody?
Vicky is still here. Any other members of the public or any
Judy's here.
comments? Oh, Judy is here. Hi,
Well, I'll
Judy.
expand on what I briefly mentioned earlier. I've been, as many of you know, recovering from a surgery and then recovering from the medicine they gave me after the surgery and So I'm trying to walk more and more, and of course I use land bank trails quite often. And as a member of the staff, I remember in the past that the commission really had a definite, position on benches on the trails. But I must say that the bench at, like, is it Red Tail Trail?
Yes.
Which overlooks Beaverton Marsh, is very well placed. It's because, you know, I like numbers, it's halfway across, you know, and that trail is, for me, is particularly accessible, because it's right by a parking lot, and there's a bathroom, it's just wonderful. And so it's been a big part of my, rehabilitation regimen. Thank you.
Glad to hear it, Judy, and, speedy recovery.
Yeah, we're getting there.
I don't know whether you were here earlier, but I mentioned the issue of accessibility.
Yes, I was.
Yeah,
Yes,
good.
that's why I thought, oh, I'm gonna say that.
I think it's something we should pay a little attention to, so thanks for your comment. Okay, so if there are no more public comments, we are set to recess into executive session to talk about the potential acquisition of real property. And we will come back, let's see, what, a little bit behind. No, we're right on, actually. We will come back to adjourn by 11:10. Bye, Judy. Thank you.
This is where I have to. This is where I have to.
It's real after-
Okay, so let me, before you do anything,
She's sworn to
I'm
secrecy.
paused.
No, you.
Um,
Well, maybe not, but that's it.